She is one of the most informed quizzers in the world right now. Last year she came third in the World Quizzing Championships. Join us as we talk to Victoria Groce and preview the upcoming World Quizzing Championship 2021. So welcome, Victoria Groce. With the World Championships just round the corner, could you just give us a little bit of your background in the WQC, how you've done, and how you prepare for it?
My first WQC was, I think, 2017. I went in completely blind. I had never done any kind of IQA event before. Pretty sure at that time. But Steve Perry always holds the kind of hosts them here. So he invited me, and I came. I got somewhere in the low 130s. Did it again the next year. Did a little bit worse. 2019, I think I finished 19th. And then last year, I managed to finish third with the highest score over all eight rounds. Like if you hadn't dropped a score, I had the top raw score. So that was very exciting because I thought I was further away than that.
So how would you take that step forward? You know, if you've been the top scoring player across 8 genres without dropping any, obviously you need to edge up some of the other scores to account for the drop. Have you been focusing your work in any particular areas?
Yeah. I mean, I did kind of identify here are a couple places where I feel like I have more headroom. Mostly sports and the world category, in places where I've kind of considered myself a little bit weaker, and where I can identify, okay, if you learn all the UNESCO World Heritage Sites or whatever, there's room to pick up some points there. It's tricky because I feel like there's a couple of general strategies that people use. I think there are people who just say, I'm going to ignore, usually it's either science or sports. And I'm going to say, I'm going to take whatever I get on those categories. I'm going to have 7 that I focus on. I find it risky because some years one is very difficult. I would usually consider media a strength. I think I tied for 3rd last year in media. I dropped it. It was just incredibly hard. So I feel like it's a little safer to go for all 8, but it does kind of increase the workload.
It is risky, as you say, because with the quiz split into 2 halves, and if one that you think you're going to drop is in the first half, and it turns out that you'd have done all right on that, and second half there's an absolute brute, you really can find yourself out of the running if you're not careful. So
you can, yeah. I mean, and I don't. I'm not the sort of person to get rattled if I have something go badly, but yeah, if you have a year where everybody's, really struggles with one of your strong categories, it can make things difficult.
For anybody getting into quizzing, have you got some advice for them about how they can, start to improve their quizzing?
I think the easiest thing that people can do to make a quick impact is to look at the stuff you miss. In whatever quizzing you expose yourself to, make a note of it. Whatever you're using to study, if you're a flashcard person, if you're just a write things down person, if you're just a read and remember person, I think the easiest thing to focus on first is things that you have missed and found interesting, because you'll find that so much more memorable than something you just come across. You'll have a hook for it. I find it much easier to learn things if I have just somewhere in my brain to put them in some context. And I think that's a quick way to get context for a new quizzer.
And if it's come up once, it's going to come up again.
Absolutely.
So yeah. Do you use flashcards yourself?
Oh, yes, I do. I'm an Anki person.
So Anki is about this spaced repetition, which is, you look at a set of cards on a particular day, go through them, then you leave it a bit longer the next time and a bit longer the next time, and over time these things just get the knowledge degrades less and it gets retained more. Do you find that works, that technique works for you?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely, yes. My quizzing took a huge leap forward when I started. I was using Anki for school when I was going back. I had never really learned how to study when I was going to school the first time. So when I decided to kind of go back, I figured that since I had very limited time, this was something I needed to figure out. I was actually working in education research at the time, so I kind of knew this was state of the art from what I was doing at work. Went back to school, was a much better student. So when I decided, I'd like to just do a little better at quiz, I started applying it there, and it's had very good results for me.
One thing we're going to see in the WQC this year is a lot of people who have just been spending the the last year or so doing nothing but every possible quiz they can take part in. You might see some people shoot up the rankings. The Evan Lynches of this world.
Yes,
may just zap up.
I know. I could see Dowd doing very well.
Yeah,
he's another person who's very impressive.
So, putting you on the spot, assuming you don't win, who do you think might win?
Ooh.
Could it be Steve Perry's year, for example?
It could always be Steve's year, but he hasn't had as much study time as usual because he has been working so hard with the coronavirus pandemic. Although I play with him regularly, he is incredible. Him winning would never surprise me, and I don't know that there'd be anybody more deserving. Similar with Troy, who was last year's runner-up, and I know has been very much gunning for it. And then, of course, there are so many strong European and Asian players, really a lot of people.
There are, and there's a lot about how the questions fall, isn't there? But with the amount of quizzing that's been going on, and I know yourself and others have been not just quizzing in America, you've been doing all of the kind of OQL stuff and Mimirs and all of that side of things, that can only stand you in good stead because you're being exposed to content that you probably wouldn't have naturally come across in the normal course of events.
Oh, agree. Yeah, absolutely.
So it's terrifying. So we can look forward. We can look forward to an American sweeping the board like the Ryder Cup.
As much as we would love that, I don't think it's likely. Okay, I think there are just too many excellent UK, European, Asian players for any one region of the world to sweep more than 3 or 4 of the top 10. I just don't see that happening.
Well, we will find out in a short while whether my ridiculous prediction is truly ridiculous or not. But best of luck for the WQC. Thank
you so much.
I'll be competing myself, and I will be looking upwards at you in the distance.
Oh, no.
Victoria, thanks so much for speaking to us.
Thank you for having me. This has been a pleasure.